Nerdy Scribbler. Welcome back to the Nerdy Scribbler. I'm your host, Anthony D'Elia, and today I thought I would throw my hat in the ring on the topic of cartoon creature design. When it comes to creature design, typical creatures are usually a mix of two or more things' best qualities. So as you can see here, I am designing a little plant creature that has an eyeball. So this didn't start out as a plant. From the first sketch, I gave these little nubby arms and a cup-like base which drew the comparison of a flower pot, so I decided to make these guys plants. The other little details include wrinkly stems, one leaf on each side of their bases, 3 antennae, and an eyebrow that raises above their head depending on whether or not they're emoting. And since eyes are humans' most expressive feature, I drew this little guy with 3 different expressions. The first is shocked, the second is concerned or afraid, and the last one is annoyed. By the third drawing, I had streamlined the drawing process by starting with an elliptical shape. Then I would draw the little hairs around the border, and then add longer hairs for more diversity. Next, the eyeball's expression determined how I wanted the antenna to be posed. So these little guys have a dandelion shape to them, so I decided to turn them into a pun. Since dandelions are weeds, and these little guys have eyeballs, I decided to christen them seaweed. They almost tell a story together. The left one sees something off in the distance, the middle one is already the worry-wart type and is fearful of what his friend sees, and the right one is tired of both of them doing this bit over and over again, so it's rolling its eye and crossing its leaves as if it's folding its arms in annoyance. I wanted to go with an inky look for them, so I gave them very black lines and colors with white highlights, but you can use whatever colors you want for your own designs, just make sure the colors aren't overly saturated unless you want to draw attention to certain areas. Believability is key to making your characters feel real. If you give them a space to occupy or a sense of purpose, they become more real for your audience. Or you can give them dynamic poses. Whereas my first seaweed is very still looking, I gave it the look of shock, and I had the other two play off of that. That way they all have some personality. And since I didn't want the seaweeds to merely exist in blank space, I decided to give them a little background just so they felt like they belonged to a world. So I went with a standard field/forest design. I didn't want too much green in the picture, so I gave the trees a bluish hue, which makes the fantasy setting seem more real for my weeds with eyesight. And finally, I finished everything off with a sunset sky and shadows along the ground. Even though I drew a fantasy setting, I still applied shading to the world to drive home the sense of believability. Remember that, believability. But that's it, my scribblings. If you like what you've seen here, consider subscribbling to the channel. Also leave a like and a comment, and if you are really impressed, you can follow me on Patreon to help me grow as an artist. Stay scribbly.